Hey guys, welcome back to Home with the Hursts. I'm Megan, and today we are going to be restocking my pantry, doing a little homemaking, and also working out in the garden. I know this is crazy coming from somebody in November, but we've got some work to do to get it prepared for spring. So I am starting off with cleaning out my fridge. We just got a as your standard order, and so my fridge really just needs to be cleaned out. I try to do this once a month, like when we have our as your standard pickup order, because that's usually a time that I can get it all cleaned out and prepare it for putting stuff inside it again. I did not do this last month, and so this needs it, but this fridge is also new to us, so it did get a good clean when we got it. So anyways, I am just going through everything, getting all of the stuff out that has kind of been forgotten about and gone bad. Anything that is just kind of past its prime will go to the chickens, and yeah, just wiping down all of the sides, cleaning out the drawers, wiping off or washing the shelves, and just making it look nice and clean before I put stuff back into it. I really hate that it gets so messy super easily, because all it takes is one thing to be spilled in there and then it just drips down to all of the other shelves. But it's all in all not like terrible to have to do. Okay, so while I am putting our fresh fruit and stuff away and going through these boxes, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about something that I feel like I'm going to try and start doing. So we do our as your standard pickup once a month, but we also go to Aldi's once a week, if not more, to the other stores and get like fresh produce. We get our meat there. Some of the things that they have there is cheaper than as your standard, so I try to do price comparisons. But I was reading this book the other day called How to Simplify Your Life, and one of the things that she was talking about was, one, buying food in bulk, which we already do, but also limiting your time at the store. So I think that I'm going to try and do like bulk grocery shopping at Aldi's maybe once or twice a month instead of once a week. That would save us on gas and save my time, and I think that we have plenty of freezer space for that. We are about to pick up a half of a hog that we had butchered, and then we're also about to pick up a half of a beef that we had butchered at our local farm. So we should be covered on meat soon, but the fresh produce and stuff like that will be hard to do, I think. So I'm just curious, what do you guys do? Do you maybe just prep all of that and freeze it, your fresh produce, or do you go to the store weekly? What's your opinion on trying to do all of that in one trip or two trips instead of once a week? Okay, now that we have everything cleaned up, I'm going to start putting things away. So I just bought a ton of oats, rice, blueberries, things that we have been out of for a little bit. And the sad thing is that my husband has been talking to his nutritional therapist, and he's trying to heal his gut and some other things, and they have suggested that he be off of dairy as well as any grains, which means no oats, no rice, no flour, which he wasn't doing to begin with. And he's trying to eat more potatoes, sweet potatoes, and I bought all of the grains, but I didn't get the extra sweet potatoes or regular potatoes because at the time we had plenty of them. But now that he's mainly eating only potatoes for his carbs, I am out of potatoes and we have way too many oats. So it's like sometimes you can't win for losing. But anyways, We buy a 30-pound bag of blueberries, and I go in and I will divide them up into 1-gallon Ziploc bags so that it's easier to access for the kids, and we can store them and just get out what we need at the time. So the kids, we've tried to do the whole bag thing, and we've had blueberry juice everywhere. So I have now decided to go ahead and divide them into individual bags so that we can use them that way. Once we get down to the last 2 bags, I'll know that it's time to go ahead and order another 30-pound bag of blueberries. And I just store all of these in our deep freezer. I did do a grocery store at home tour, and so I will link that video down below in the description box if you missed that. But we basically built our own grocery store on our back porch. It was not enclosed, and before we added on to our house, I knew I needed some extra space for our kitchen stuff to go in. So if there's anything that I would recommend in adding on to your house, I would definitely recommend adding on a really big pantry or a grocery store area for your stuff so that you can buy in bulk and save money. I'm also refilling up all of our jars of popcorn, cornmeal, almond flour, almonds, things like that. And so if we have anything left in the jar before, I will try to pour that out and then pour the new stuff into the bottom, and so that the older stuff is at the top and it gets used first. And I'm also going to be making some almond extract. So I talked about in my last video how to make vanilla extract, which this is basically the same. You're just going to pour in your almonds and then pour 80 proof or higher alcohol on top. I just choose vodka. It's flavorless and just allows whatever is in there to kind of take over the flavor. And then we put I put wax paper over it this time, not parchment paper, but either one works if you're going to be using a metal lid. And you just pour it over it, cover it, and shake it up and let it sit for several weeks until it smells like almond extract. And the longer it sits, the better flavor you're going to get. So this is really simple and easy to stock up on in your pantry. So my biggest tip if you're going to buy in bulk is to have buckets for the things that you buy a lot of, but also having jars that you can pour in your stuff to keep easy access to. So for things like flour, oats, rice, cornmeal, whatever you're buying in bulk, you want to have a bucket to put the majority of it in, and then have a jar for just the access that you're going to be using more like on a daily basis or a weekly basis. So we do this with our flour, and I have my flour sitting out on my countertop because I use it the most. And then our cornmeal and almond meal and things like that we don't use quite as often, but we still use, I don't want to have to go back to the pantry to get it every time we need it. I will put them in mason jars or pretty jars and store them on the shelf in my kitchen. So I've been really praying about how to be a good steward to my family, of all of the things that God has given me, and I have really been studying the Proverbs 31 woman, and I did a whole video on that as well, so be sure to check that out. But I love having food storage for my family. I love feeling prepared. I love not having to run to the store every 5 seconds because we don't have noodles for the spaghetti tonight. And instead, I have all of the ingredients to make the noodles. I just find that having these skills of cooking from scratch and being organized and having the bandwidth to be able to plan ahead and things like that are just really nice and are very beneficial to me and my family. There's some things that I am still working on as a wife and a mother, and I, will be very honest about that. I don't want you guys to think that anything about me is perfect or ready or complete, I guess, but God is still doing a good work in me, and He is allowing me to be sifted and sanctified, and He's using my family and all of the things that I'm learning to help me achieve that. So now we are taking a plant from Aldi's that I have been storing in my bathroom. I love it, but it's starting to turn brown at the tips, and so I thought maybe it just needs to be repotted with some fresh soil. And so that's what I'm doing here. I just went and got a pot from Walmart, and I'm trying to break up the roots a little bit, put in some fresh soil, cut away anything that's dead, and then put this back into my bathroom. So I will let you know how this turns out. So far it hasn't died, but it doesn't look super vibrant, so I'm not really sure if I need to do something more than what I did, but this is a really fun space for me now. Alright, so now let's get into making some applesauce. I ordered 20 pounds of apples from As Your Standard, and I like to make applesauce with it. This is super easy. All you need is a crock pot. I mean, you could use just a regular pot on the stove if you want to, and you need an immersion blender, and that's it. So what I do is I take my apples and I just cut off the sides. I leave the core. So I put the cores in a bowl, and we are going to save those for later to make something else. Once I get all of the apples, like the bad spots, peeled off, and I just have my apple pieces in my crock pot, I'm going to pour about 8 ounces of water in there and then sprinkle some cinnamon. And then I'm going to let them cook on high for 4 hours. If you want to let them cook longer, I would just turn the thing down to low. And yeah, then we're going to let that cook while we go do some other things. Now, the apple cores, we're going to make some apple cider vinegar with that. So I will put the link in the video description below of the video that I watched on how to make this. But basically, you're just going to put your cores in a jar, fill it up with water, put some sugar in it, and then you are going to let that sit to start to ferment. And eventually you will strain your apples out, add a little bit of apple cider vinegar from another jar with the mother in it, and then you're going to let that ferment, and it's kind of like sourdough starter or anything else. So super easy to do. It just takes a while for it to become apple cider vinegar. And I think that there are test strips and stuff that you can get to test the acidity of it, but I just use it in my cooking and things like that. So super easy. And then once you're done with the apple cores, you can throw them out to your chickens for a good probiotic snack. So you're not wasting anything, and you're giving your chickens a healthy snack if that's what you have. And yeah, so I really like using everything when we have it. All right, now let's head out to the garden. My husband and I built these raised beds from scrap lumber left over from the wood we had milled on our property, and some of them are holding up pretty well. Some of them have fallen over. The chickens have been basically free ranging, and I thought that our dog was protecting them until recently we found out that he was actually being a predator towards them. So we are going to have to get them fenced back in and get them a new coop built. But we try to do the back to Eden style gardening, so that means keeping the ground covered with wood chips and having a weed barrier like cardboard or some type of newspaper or something like that. Here in East Tennessee, I've found that we have to have cardboard applied fairly often to keep the weeds down. So I am right now just putting in a lot of wood chips, and we will worry about the rest of it later. I just do a little bit at a time here. I can't do it all the time. So we are still getting peppers, you guys. This is insane how much food we've gotten because we still haven't had a really hard cold spell lately. So I'm gonna harvest some of these and take them inside, and we can make some red chili flakes later. I'm also wanting to make some more loofahs. Well, okay, I grew the loofahs, but I want to turn them into stuff that we can wash our bodies with or wash our dishes with, which is mostly what we use them for. I grew these 2 years ago, and I've just been storing them under our house. It's like a screened-in porch, and so they have been drying out. Some of them molded, so I try not to keep those. I just put those in the compost. But these are super easy. Like, if they're dried out really well, they're easy to peel, and you just take the seeds out, and we'll take them inside in a minute and wash them and cut them and get them ready. But if they are not dried out well, then it's a pain in the butt to try to get them peeled. So just beware. The best place to dry them out is in the sun on the vine. But if you have to get them and they're still green, then I think that you can just either dry them out in your oven, or you can put them in a dry place where they get good airflow and just allow them to dry that way. So basically you just cut up the center and you're cutting out the core of it and letting them dry flat so that you can either sew them or you can cut them into smaller pieces, however you plan on using them. Now, once the apples were done, it was about 4 hours, I took my immersion blender and just turned it on and blended everything up. Then I put them into jars, and the kids have already eaten half of this. It was so good. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you got some inspiration from this, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.